And good afternoon, Sword family. Welcome back to the Teahouse. Tonight, as per Uncle Carl's request, we will be discussing the Gurkhas of Nepal. And since we've done two different Asian warrior classes, I figure we have one more show this month on the 25th. After that will be the 1st of August. So, what would everyone think about picking another Asian warrior class that's not the samurai? Because everyone knows about the samurai. I would rather do something less well known, which, as I said a couple of months ago, when I decided to broaden my topics here, I won't be discussing Japan a whole lot because that's a fairly well-known culture in and of itself. I mean, when the Jet Li movie Hero got bought out by the idiots at Miramax, and yes, I know I've discussed this several times and I'm going to do it again. They changed the poster of the movie so the Jet Li's character, Nameless, instead of holding a jin, they gave him a katana. Why did they do this? Because people would be more familiar with that sword, despite the fact that he never uses a katana in the entire movie. The only thing you're going to find that's even remotely close is Zhang Ziyi's character, Moon, and she uses two short, very heavily curved swords that are not katanas. They don't have guards on them. So Japan is already well established. So I was thinking possibly next week on Saturday talking about possibly the Mongols. Because, and I just realized this just now, as I was thinking about it, The Who, the Mongolian folk metal band, has an album release the day before on the 24th. So yeah. Next Saturday we're going to talk about the Mongols. Yep, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the Mongols next Saturday. This will be the month of warriors, even though I've only done 3 out of 5. 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4 Saturdays this month have been different Asian warrior classes. And I think that the Gurkhas, since we were talking about the Rajput last week, I want to say that the Gurkhas also made an appearance on Deadliest Warrior. Possibly. Maybe not. No, I swear they did. I swear they did. And of course, talking about the Mongols, they for sure did show up in an episode of Deadliest Warrior. We'll be discussing the Mongol bow because they are horse archers and very, very accomplished horse archers at that. But that will be for next week. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, First through the door today is Dave at 5:06 p.m. Time to prepare for tea. Right here. Got my tea. And Foxy pops in 3 minutes later. Greeting, Dave. Oh, excuse me. Just brewed a pot of coffee. Well, coffee, tea. And it's the birthday girl. Kitty with her very, very enthusiastic hi. Yes, everyone, it's Kitty's birthday. Let her know. It's her birthday. Birthday. And Pro is joining us. Howdy. Hey, Pro. Good to see you. Welcome, everyone, to the Teahouse. Tonight we are discussing follower-prompted video on the Gurkhas of Nepal. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And Okie dokie Foxy from Pro. And Ruby joining us. Hello, everyone. Hello, Ruby. Just making sure he says it. Yeah. We all know that we're terrible at self-promotion and paying attention to ourselves. I have a project that I am working on, and I might do something that I haven't done in a while. And I don't know if I've ever done a short form video on this channel, but most people already know that I make training weapons. I have my Ome piercers here. I have a couple of cane swords that I made for me and Foxy. I have my Boffer Tien that I have in there. I'm thinking of making something that I kind of sort of made many years ago. Only this time, I'm thinking of sending it to a fairly well-known YouTuber that I would very much like to have as a guest for an episode of Tea Time. The only problem is shipping for that thing might be kind of a beast. So we will see about that maybe later. But I just want to throw that little bit of info. I'm not going to tell you who, and I'm not going to tell you what it is that I plan on making or might plan on making. Just that little bit of information to try and get people interested. And Foxy greeting Kitty and Ruby, and Donna greeting Foxy and Kitty and Ruby and Pro, and Dave. Hey, Donna. Foxy greeting Pro and Donna. Oh, with me dude may be late. He's talking with Bestie's hubby. Well, this was his idea, so if I have to vamp for a little while, it's already been 10 minutes. And no worries. And Trey is joining us. Hey, y'all. Here's a question for everyone. It has been, I think, a year since I've done a tea time. The last one was Sifu Cuddle. It will not be anytime soon. But what would the Sword family think about Trey coming back for a third run through of Tea Time? Because the last time, actually no, the first time we did our regular interview and then turned the cameras off and continued talking for like an hour. And then the second time we talked for a while and turned the cameras off and talked for another like half an hour to an hour. We could probably just turn the cameras on and just talk. I really enjoy having conversations with Trey, especially about martial arts and our different approaches to martial arts. So, like I said, wouldn't be anytime soon because she's very busy. But what would everyone think? I think it'd be fun. And Dan joining us. Good evening, Dan. Donna greeting Trey and Dan. And Foxy greeting Trey and Dan. Ah, there's Carl. Actually, he wasn't late at all. He was about 2 minutes early. Darn video chats nearly made me late. Hey, everyone. Hello, Dan. Hello, Carl. Not Dan, Carl. Greetings to Carl. Greetings to the Withman dude. And here we go. And greetings to Carl. And greetings to me. And Midnight with his What's Up, Sword People. Hey, Midnight. Greetings to Midnight. And greetings to Donna from Pro and Trey. And greetings to Midnight and Pro from Trey. Yay, Gurkhas. Yeah, I actually learned something. So I appreciate you bringing this up, Carl. I actually learned the event that caused the Gurkhas to be assimilated into part of the British military. I was not aware of this event. So thank you, Carl. And howdy, Dan, and howdy, Carl. Greeting everyone. Howdy, Foxy. Would you have time to research the Mongols? There you go. See? Dan is psychic. Mongols would be good. With the Maori count as Asia? The Maori, okay. The Maori are officially called Pacifica, which is Pacific Islanders. But there is a month called AAPI month, which is Asian American Pacific Islander month. So I'm going to say yes. Just because they are part of that cultural appreciation month. There's a guy I started following on Instagram called Teahouse, and he did an entire month during AAPI month talking about Pacifica culture. So Maori is something we could definitely look into. Maori also were on an episode of Deadliest Warrior. They went up against the Shaolin and lost. It's a curse, yeah. Have a few, yeah. Both would be interesting. Season 3, episode 31. Just in case Katie joined. Yeah, she's already here. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. Hey, Joe. Yes, Trey is in. All right, so I know that you're like crazy busy until like October with work and everything, but just give me a general idea on when you might be available for a tea time, and we will make it work. We will make it work. Always love Trey. Yes, we do. Indeed, we want Trey. We want Trey. Everybody, we want Trey. Greetings to Midnight and giggles from Foxy. Okay. So, oh, look, we have a Kickbot. Go away, Kickbot. Okay, Saturdays are usually free. Okay, What about August 1st? 2 weeks from today. What do you think? I want to make sure that you have time to, like, I don't know, sleep. Make sure that you're fresh, but I think August 1st would be a good one. One thing, there might not be a game stream on August 3rd because Foxy has another doctor's appointment upstate. And while the doctor's appointment is god-awful early in the morning, I don't know if I will feel like gaming that evening after having to drive all the way up there, do the doctor thing, and then come all the way back. I don't know if I will feel like gaming that night. So there probably most likely won't be a game stream on the 3rd. Panhammer is still mighty and tastes great with soy sauce. Well, it's topical with soy sauce. Nice. Okay, August 1st currently looks good, and I usually wake up about 2 hours before showtime. All right, so there you go, folks. The next 2 weeks of Teahouse streams are taken care of. Next week, we'll do the Mongols. August 1st will be Tea Time with Trey part Sun. And then maybe on the 8th, we'll do the Maori. That sounds good, I think. Yeah, I do deserve a night off. This is true. All right. The Gurkha of Nepal. Nepal and some parts of northern India. They are recruited for the Nepali army, the Indian army, the British army, the Gurkha contingent of the Singapore police force, the Gurkha Reserve Unit of the Royal Brunei Armed Forces, and UN peacekeeping forces in war zones all over the world. So, yeah, they are very, very well known. And very sought after. They are an elite, fiercely loyal army, well known for the kukri, which I don't have one, but I think Dan has one. I do not currently have a kukri. I would like one. You know, my birthday's coming up in a couple months. I'm kidding. But they have an over 200-year-long history and serve under the motto, better to die than be a coward. The event that I spoke about was the Anglo-Nepalese War from 1814 to 1816, also known as the Gurkha War. The British East India Company got a little bit annoyed because Nepal had been expanding its borders eastward in the late 18th century. Meaning, the British in India looked at that and said, oh, no. We can't have this. They're encroaching into our territory because the British decided that everything in India and Hong Kong belonged to them. Like they, tried to do with the Scots and several other countries. So, across the Himalayas, you had the East India Company and the Kingdom of Nepal. The war ended with the Treaty of Sugali, which basically made the Kingdom of Nepal and the East India Company partners. Both sides had suffered pretty terrible losses during the war, and neither could sustain the hostilities, so they kind of said, okay, we're going to sign a peace treaty. And that was the impetus of the Gurkhas now being recruited into the British military. Because the British were so impressed by the honor and combat skills of the Gurkhas that they were like, hey, we need you guys on our side. We need you to be part of our army. After watching the way that they fought, the British were like, I would rather have you as an ally than ever have you as an enemy. The Gurkhas served in both world wars with the British, the Falklands, and modern wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. There have been multiple Gurkhas awarded the Victoria Cross, which is the highest military decoration for valor in the British military. Oh, yeah. That was right before the Vampire Werewolves one, wasn't it? Penultimate episode of Deadliest Warrior was the French Foreign Legion versus the Gurkha. Yeah. They ended the entire series of Deadliest Warrior with vampires versus werewolves. The entire span of the show was actual warrior cultures, actual soldiers, actual military units. They did William Wallace versus Shaka Zulu. And then the very final episode is like, screw it. Vampires versus werewolves. I have 3. Okay, yeah. The selection process to become a Gurkha for the British Army is incredibly difficult, to the point that it borders on being legendary. Tens of thousands of young men annually apply for a very limited number of spots. One of the tests that they have to complete is running uphill, an uphill course, while carrying a basket full of rocks. And that's just for the British Gurkhas, because the Gurkhas are also still part of the Indian Army. The Gurkhas, or Gorkha, get their name from the Gorkha kingdom that the kingdom of Nepal expanded on. The British saw the strength of Nepal because of the Gorkhas' conquests of the Kathmandu Valley. That expansion led to the Anglo-Nepalese War. There are Gurkha military units in Nepal, Britain, India, the greater UK, which includes Scotland and Wales, and Singapore. This part I found very interesting. The Gurkha should meet with the definition of mercenaries according to the Geneva Convention. However, they are exempt, just like the French Foreign Legion, which is probably why that episode of Deadliest Warrior was the French Foreign Legion versus the Gurkha, because they're both fit with the many, if not all, of the criteria of Article 47 of Protocol 1 of the Geneva Convention for mercenaries. But probably due to their fighting abilities and the fact that no one really wants to go up against a Gurkha, they're probably like, you know what? Never mind. You guys are good. Go. That's a good, yeah, we need that one. Jack Maxwell had to do that when he visited the Gurkhas on boot. Oh, interesting. Thank you, Donna. I thought so, yeah. News to me about the mercenary. Yes. The most well-known of the Gurkhas' weapons is the kukri, which is a curved, single-edged blade that if you have seen them, you will recognize them. If not, this is a fairly intricate one with the carvings on the handle. And this does not appear to have the two smaller blades that I have heard are for sharpening the kukri. Now, this little groove right here, every bit of information that I have been able to look up says that no one actually knows what this is for. It's not a blood groove. It's not a guard. There have been several perceived explanations for what it's for. One of them is, yes, that if blood is running down the blade, having this here will cause it to kind of pool and then channel this way, which would still get on your hand unless it's literally pouring off this direction, kind of towards the scabbard. If it's just dripping straight down, it's going to be dripping right onto your fingers anyway. There's also been a belief that it is a symbol of masculinity. We'll put it that way. Because if you look at this area right here, how it's kind of rounded and hanging, some people think that it is meant to resemble a certain portion, a certain part of the male anatomy, which would make this very large piece the other part of said male anatomy. But none of this has been, no one knows. I think the cigar band for the Gurkha cigar shows a warrior testing split. Okay. One is for sharpening, other is for cooking, maybe. It's entirely possible. But yeah, that's their... I mean, the picture that I picked for the thumbnail has a Gurkha with a kukri. That's what they're known for. That and people not wanting to mess with them. Because, again, screw that. They are very impressive fighters. I don't remember what other weapons they brought in for the episode of Deadliest Warrior. But since it's season 3 and they're going against the French Foreign Legion, I'm going to say they were probably guns, which everyone knows how I feel about guns. But I know for sure that the kukri was definitely there. Yeah. If you can live in an area with less oxygen like Nepal, you are a superhuman at sea level. Yeah. That's probably a good portion of their training too. Is like running and doing various other activities in the Himalayas, in Nepal, in areas that are colder and higher elevation. That would make a difference. The Gurkhas basically joined the East India Company in 1816 with the end of the Gurkha War. The British used Gurkha defectors as part of their army, but not part of their army. I know there's a term for it, and I can't think of it right now. I really need to start writing my notes down instead of keeping them all in my head. One of the British generals was so confident in the loyalty of the defectors that in 1815, he proposed actually forming a battalion into the British Army of the Gurkha defectors called the Nasiri Regiment. Which actually still exists to this day. They're now called the Gurkha Rifles, or the first Gurkha Rifles. Around 5,000 men entered British service in 1815. They also created the second Gurkha Rifles and a third battalion, which eventually became the third Gurkha Rifles. The Gurkhas served under contract to the East India Company in the Pindari War of 1817, in Barapur in 1826, and in the First and Second Anglo-Sikh Wars in 1846 and 1848. During the Indian Rebellion of 1857, Gurkhas fought on the British side and became part of the British Indian Army. From the end of the rebellion until the start of World War I, the Gurkhas fought in Burma, Afghanistan, Northeast India, Northwest India, Malta, Cyprus, Malaysia, China during the Boxer Rebellion, and Tibet. However, after the Indian Rebellion, the British authorities were afraid that the new British Indian Army would include the caste symbol of Hinduism into the British Indian Army. So they discouraged Brahminical influence because the Hindu castes were more susceptible to Brahma values. So they made it a point to refuse certain kinds of Indian people to make sure that there were no Hindus in the British Indian Army. They also put diplomatic pressure on the Prime Minister of India to make sure that 75% of recruits belong to the only classes, the only tribes in India that were not Hindu. They're actually Tibetan. Between 1901 and 1906, the Gurkha regiments were renumbered from 1st to the 10th and redesignated as the Gurkha Rifles. During World War I, 200,000 Gurkhas served in the British Army. 20,000 were casualties, and 2,000 were given awards. The number of battalions was increased to 33, and Gurkha units were placed at the use of the British High Command by the government for service on all fronts of the war. Many Gurkhas wanted non-combat roles. Which is kind of interesting, considering they're like one of the most well-known and scariest warrior classes. They didn't want war. Lee Enfield and machine gun. Yeah, see, that's the thing that okay, mini rant. The first season of Deadliest Warrior, other than them not really focusing on tactics and warrior philosophy, the first season was good. The second season was half and half guns and martial arts weapons. Like the first episode was the SWAT team versus like the IDF or something like that. So it was like gun, no gun, gun, no gun, gun, no, for the entire second season. Hello, TwitchBot. So half of the episodes of season 2, to me, are garbage. I don't care. I don't care about this gun versus this gun. I don't care. That's not why I watch the show. And then in season 3, when they brought in a better simulation program, and they actually started paying attention to warrior philosophy and tactics, it was like every single episode was like a sword or a martial weapon and then gun. Because they changed the criteria for weapons that it became short range, mid range, long range. And that's it. So like every single episode was like the mid range weapon is a sword or an axe or something. And then it was gun. I hated that. I despised that. I don't want guns. Yes, I understand. Guns are a thing. I'm not stupid. But that's not why I watch this show. I wanted to actually see the warrior versus the warrior, not the gun versus the gun. When they did Sun Tzu versus Vlad the Impaler, they gave Vlad the killage, which when we did the Blades of Asia earlier this month, if you remember, is a strong, curved weapon, which is a slashing weapon, which is why there's that weight at the front. It's meant for slashing. They gave Sun Tzu the Jian. This is not a fair comparison. In my opinion, Sun Tzu probably did use the Jian, it's true, but he was also a battlefield general, and the battlefield blade of China was the Dao. If you're going to test sword versus sword, then test cutting sword versus cutting sword. I want to say they did the same thing when they did the Ming army versus the Musketeers. They gave the Musketeers a rapier. They gave the Ming the Dao. No. Switch those two. Give Sun Tzu the Dao. Give the Ming the Jian. The Ming army used Jian. We know this. There is an LK Chen Ming cutting Jian. They used the Jian, but they gave them the Dao. This is not a fair comparison. And it's the same thing when you do, well, this machine gun versus this machine gun. I don't care. The whole point is deadliest warrior, not deadliest marksman. Enfield would be the more British influenced. Machine gun might be Thompson. I don't know. I know that there was a Tommy gun. I think that was the Yakuza versus the Italian Mafia, which again, I disagree with. Because it was, again, I want to say they gave the Italian Mafia the Switchblade, and they gave the Yakuza like a Tanto, and everything else was gun versus gun. In my opinion, and yes, I might be biased because I think most Asians could beat most, not all, most other warriors with a few exceptions. I do not think for 1 second that the Italian Mafia would beat the Yakuza in a straight up brawl. If it was warrior versus warrior, the Yakuza would destroy them. I'm sorry. If you are Italian, if you disagree with me, tell me about it. But the Yakuza, nah, bro. Nah. Those guys were nuts. They were insane. They would be so afraid of having to go back to their leader and admit defeat that they would like lose limbs and be like, no, I have to keep going. Well, Pro agrees with me on something, yeah. Not fair to compare a cavalry weapon to an infantry weapon. Exactly. Okay. The Gurkhas also served in combat in France, Iraq, Palestine, Turkey, one battalion of Gurkhas actually served with Lawrence of Arabia. A battalion of Gurkhas fought down to the very last man, throwing themselves entirely against the weight of the German defenses. They were just like, screw it, go. During the Battle of Gallipoli in France, the Gurkhas were the first to arrive and last to leave. They led the assault during the first major operation to take a Turkish high point and captured an area that became known as Gurkha Bluff. At Sari Blair, they were the only troops in the entire campaign to reach and hold a line and look down the strait. The 2nd Battalion of Gurkha Rifles fought in Baghdad. At the end of World War I, they mostly were returned to India and kept kind of away from all the other things going on. They fought in the Afghan War of 1819. In World War II, there were 10 Gurkha regiments. In 1940, they increased the number of battalions to 35, which would then increase again to 43. 250,000 plus Gurkhas served in 40 battalions, plus 8 Nepalese battalions, parachute battalions, garrison battalions, training battalions, and various other units during World War II. In addition to being a peacekeeping force in India, the Gurkhas fought in Italy, Japan, Singapore, North Africa, Syria, and Burma. These guys were everywhere. They had basically the same ranking system as the rest of Indian armies. Viceroys, subedars, jamedars, habildars, naliks. Those are all ranks in Indian army. Under the tripartite agreement signed between the governments of the UK, India, and Nepal, the original 10 Gurkha regiments were split between the British Army and the Indian Army. The British, for some reason, were surprised when the Gurkhas were given a choice between serving in the British Army or the Indian Army. The majority of the Gurkhas were like, we're going over to the Indian Army. For some reason, the British were like, but why? I don't understand. However, it was at least partially because the Gurkha regiments were going to continue to serve in their existing roles in familiar Indian territory. The aim of the tripartite agreement was to make sure that the Gurkhas under the crown would be paid the same amount as those serving in the Indian Army. Which was lower than the standard British rate of pay. The pay is lower in India because the cost of living is lower in India, which is also probably partially why the Gurkhas wanted to serve as part of the Indian Army. They'd make less money, but they also had a lower cost of living. In 2008, the Nepalese monarchy was abolished, which made future recruitment of Gurkhas for British and Indian service into doubt. However, as of 2023, there is still Gurkha recruitment into the British and Indian armies. Yeah, fingers would be removed. Exactly. I'm part Italian, and I think the Yakuza would beat them. That's the thing. Like, the biggest issue I had with Deadliest Warrior is that fact right there. It wasn't until season 3 that they started putting philosophy and tactics into the computer program to run the simulated battles. Oh, excuse me. Oh. And one of the things that I think should have been, and yes, I'm leaving the Kukri up there for a reason. That's basically the end of my information on the Gurkhas. They were an amazing military force. They fought in multiple battles. They're most well known for the Kukri. They were incredibly sought out by foreign armies just because of their mystique, I guess. But good bit of input. Thank you. I appreciate that, Carl. Thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. The mafia is frightening in America. The mafia is frightening in Italy. The Yakuza is kind of frightening everywhere. And the Italian mafia especially is well known, which by itself actually makes them less scary. You know about the Italian mob. You know some of their tactics. You know some of their crimes, we'll say. You know some of the stuff that they have done, are doing, and will continue to do. The Yakuza, on the other hand, you know a little bit. You know about the cutting off of fingers. You know a little bit about the hierarchy of the Yakuza. But I can guarantee you there are some crimes to this day that are unsolved because the Japanese police showed up, looked around, recognized hallmarks of Yakuza, and went, nope, we're out. We're done. We're not investigating this any farther. Yes, exactly. Stealth is very important. And while, yes, Yakuza could be picked out of a crowd by the very innate tattoos they usually have on their backs and on their chests, but if you don't see that, how are you going to know? How are you going to know if you don't see those intricate tattoos? If there's just some guy, and plus, in the modern day, with tattoos and sleeves and body art being much more well known, you see somebody with a full back piece, I don't know. Are they Japanese mafia Yakuza, or is it just someone who likes the artwork? How are you going to know? Sorry, OCD moment. My guitar was crooked. I know that's not a euphemism for anything. Hush. That was the biggest issue I had with Deadliest Warrior. The show was advertised as warrior versus warrior. But so many times, the battle came down to being won because of weapon versus weapon. I mentioned earlier the Shaolin versus Maori. The Maori almost always got the advantage over the Shaolin weapon. But the Shaolin won because the Maori weapons were stone. The Shaolin weapons, with the exception of the quarterstaff, were steel. That's it. That was the thing that gave the Shaolin the win. Their weapons were steel. That's not warrior versus warrior. Now, my own bias, I agree with that one. I think the Shaolin would win in a one-on-one, man-to-man fight. Now, the Shaolin, being non-violent by nature, would probably try to keep the fight from happening in the first place. They wouldn't want to fight. But when it comes down to, okay, I have to, I think that they would win. I don't think they would win by killing the Maori warrior. Not at all. I think they would defeat them. Now, would this end the fight? Possibly not. But eventually you're going to get to a point where you can't keep fighting. Oh, there's an idea. Ought to do a show discussing the show so you can rant at your lip. That's not a bad idea. I need to write that down before I forget, because I will forget. I could even make it a short form video if I can't. I mean, I know I could fill an entire hour with rants, but where is my Google Doc? I know. This is dead air, but I have to write this down because I will forget. But that's a good idea. I could very easily fill at least half the time with just rant. That's what we're going to call it. Rant about Deadliest Warrior. Yep, there we go. Nice. Is that your way of telling me to shut up? We are over the hour at midnight degrees. And I've given... maybe. You can tell me to shut up. Wouldn't be the first time. Good show. Thank you. I don't think I've ever gotten the dishonor of having Aunt Donna tell me to shut the fuck up, but you can tell me to shut up. It's fine. We will be back on Monday for some more Jade Empire. No, it doesn't mean I'm obligated to shut up. Not at all. We're going to do the Imperial Arena. Unless it is Aunt Donna. Yes, if Aunt Donna tells me to shut the fuck up, I shut the fuck up. It's been over an hour. I can say that word now. I don't know if the Imperial Arena will take the entire 3 hours. I highly doubt it. Aunt Donna doesn't need to tell you to shut up yet. Good. I'm glad. There are between 4 and 5 different divisions of the Imperial Arena. And there are like 3 or 4 battles for each division. So it might take a little while. And if you get all the way through without losing a fight, you get a special reward for doing so. I'm probably jinxing myself by saying this, but I have never lost a fight in the Imperial Arena. Not once. Throughout all of my playthroughs on my 360, I have never once lost a fight. Now watch me screw up and lose a fight. Because the control system, having to use the damn keyboard, sucks. I don't like it. But if you make it all the way through, Foxy sighting, you get a reward. Does the puppy want to come say hi? Oh, gotta stretch. Come on up. Come on. Up. Come on. Come on over. There's the boy. There's the boy. Hey, pupper. Good boy. Ooh. You're getting a storm rolling in. I think we're getting one. Yep. Foxy sighting. Right there. And puppy sighting. I think we're getting one rolling out. It was nice and cloudy and overcast, and there was a nice breeze when I went to the store before the show. Now the sun's back out. The clouds are gone. After the arena. Yep, there's the pupper. We will be going into the necropolis. And then into the Lotus Assassin Fortress. I don't think we'll have time for all of that. The arena might take a while. I don't know how long. We will see. You also get another weapon. Actually, you get 2 different weapon fighting styles from competing in the arena. Both of them dual weapon styles. So look forward to that. Jade Empire on Monday. Hey, Dave. Possible creatives of play on Wednesday over on the Indie CD channel. And then back here next Saturday to discuss the Mongol warriors of Mongolia. Greetings to Dave. Greetings to Dave. I look forward to everyone seeing the erudite words of our promoter in the arena. Many, many more ostepacatatiouses. Hey, baby. Hey, we got everybody. Look at this. Hey, no, come here. Closer. There we go. There's everybody. Night, everybody. 5 for midnight. Mongols, night, yep. Night for Kitty. Night for Carl. I will see everybody next time. Good night, Dan. Again.